Hello guys, Bogdan Bratis from Saspod here, and today we're going to talk about how to record a podcast using Audacity. And we're going to touch more on audio podcasts today and using Audacity. However, if you want to learn how to record a podcast in general, this tutorial will be very good for you as well, because I'm going to touch on equipment, on best microphone techniques, on best practices in general. And I want to make sure that you don't make those rookie mistakes most podcasters do, because I've seen many podcasts, they start with the first episode, they probably buy the right equipment, they don't know how to use it, or maybe they buy the wrong equipment, and again, they don't know how to use that as well. There's loads of things that can go wrong, and I want to make sure you don't make these mistakes, because it is quite easy to record a podcast. It's not difficult, and this tutorial will answer that for you. We'll make sure that you don't make these mistakes and your podcast sounds the best, so your authority and your visibility can grow, and you can basically make money podcasting or market your business through the podcast. So let's get straight into it. So let's talk about the never-ending debate about, what hardware do I need for my podcast? Do I need an XLR microphone? Do I need a USB microphone? Do I need a dynamic microphone? Do I need a condenser microphone? Do I need an audio interface? There's so many different options out there, and I can understand how you can feel overwhelmed. I remember when I started as a musician, all this information was very new to me as well, and I was overwhelmed, and I don't want you to feel that way. And I want to make sure that today I'm going to demystify how those options work and what do you need for your podcast. So I'm going to have an image inserted here that's going to show how an XLR microphone is supposed to be connected to a computer. So you will need an audio interface plus the XLR microphone and the computer, and between the XLR microphone and the audio interface you're going to have an XLR cable, and then between the audio interface and the computer you will have a USB cable, and that's all you need to know when it comes to recording with an XLR microphone. There are a few different options you have on the audio interface. I'm going to discuss about that in a minute. Now, for a USB microphone, it's a lot simpler. You've got the microphone on one hand and you've got the laptop on the other hand, and you've got a lead connecting the two, a USB cable, and you can have different USB cables depending on the type of laptop you have, USB-C or USB-A, but at the bottom of the microphone, usually the new microphones, they've got a USB-C connection, but you're going to read your manual and you're going to get the right cable, and all you need to do is plug and play. It's that easy. Now there's limitations. You cannot record two USB microphones on the same computer. There are some workarounds, but I would never recommend doing that because you're just gonna get a lot of headaches. So that's what I mean by fit for purpose is if you choose to work with a USB microphone, don't try to record a podcast in person in the studio with two USB microphones, because that's not gonna work. For that you will need an audio interface with two XLR microphones, for example. And now let's talk about the dynamic and condenser. Now, a dynamic microphone looks something like this. There are different shapes you may find, but the entire idea of the dynamic microphone is to make sure that it rejects background noise, it rejects reverberation as well in the room, and that's all that matters with dynamic microphones. And the reason why they were invented is to be used in more like live environments, let's say on stage or places where the room is not acoustically treated. Basically, that's why you want to use a dynamic microphone. And in most cases, podcasters would fit this type of application because many podcasters record into all sorts of different places, in their office, in their home, in their living room, outside. A dynamic microphone would be very good for that. However, a condenser microphone looks something like this. It's a little bit bigger, and with a condenser microphone, you will also need a pop filter, so you might want to think about that, especially if you want to record a video podcast. A pop filter sits in the front of the microphone that could obstruct your face. You won't be able to, people won't be able to see you properly. But the idea of the condenser microphone is that it's more sensitive. It captures more background noise, but the idea of it is that you would use it normally in a studio-like environment where you've got acoustic panels, where there's not a lot of noise, and that's when you might want to use a condenser microphone. It's also very sensitive to any types of, like, if you hit your stand, for example, you will hear a big rumble, and usually you might want to use a shock mount as well with it. So it's a little bit of you trade quality for convenience. You've got multiple polar patterns on this type of microphone. So polar patterns is the way the microphone captures the sound. So definitely more options, but for the everyday podcaster, a dynamic microphone is all you need. And if you want to record a multi-track podcast, make sure that you go with an audio interface and a microphone. And if you want to record a podcast by yourself, just a solo podcast or a podcast remotely via Riverside, for example, you might want to use a USB microphone because that's a lot simpler. Before you start recording your first podcast, you bought your microphone, but you realize that the microphone is not at the right position. So you may realize that it's too far away, like you may talk from very, very far away like this, or it's too low. You might want to invest in a good microphone stand. There's some microphones that ship a stand with a microphone. They're like little tripods you can put on your table. Now, they can work if you're lucky, if you've got like the right size of your table and it works well. But in most cases, that doesn't work. And you might want to buy a stand that you can adjust the height of it. For example, I've got a gravity stand. It's called gravity probably because it never falls down or it falls down or it's very anchored to the ground. I don't know why it's called like that, but that's what I use. Is one of the best brands in terms of microphone stands. You want to buy the right stand for your case. So I don't care about having an arm, like a boom arm, and adjustable stand, because my stuff is always shifting around in my studio. But there's like clip-on stands that you can buy to clip it on the table as well. So that can be a good option. So shop around, see what stand you might need for what specific case you want to use your podcast setup for, and buy that type of stand. In terms of positioning yourself in the front of the mic, you want to make sure that using a condenser microphone, you sit like that. So you talk into the microphone at the top of the microphone. It's a top address mic. And for a condenser microphone, you want to make sure that you talk on the side of it. And usually microphones have a logo in the front. That's usually the front of the microphone, but you can test around to see exactly which one is the front by talking in the front of it. Let's say this is the front. It sounds very clear, but if I turn it around, you will hear that it sounds very distant. And that's when you know you actually talk in the back of the microphone. I've seen many podcasters do this mistake. They don't face the microphone as they should. So condenser microphones are side addressed, and you want to make sure that you look for the logo or maybe some indication of where the front of the microphone is and talk in the microphone that way. You will see that there's a huge difference. For example, this one that I'm using today is the Shure SM7B, and if I talk on the side of it, you're gonna hear a huge difference. Like, look, it sounds horrible. Hello, 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 hello. Right? So it's not very good. So you want to make sure that you position yourself in the front of the microphone. Now let's talk about pop filters. Pop filters are, in my opinion, mandatory for condenser microphones and kind of optional for dynamic microphones. Now, it really depends on the voice as well. If the voice tends to have too many plosives, like stuff like that, and you cannot control that properly, then probably you might want to invest in a pop filter and have it even in the front of a dynamic microphone. It really depends about, how you talk in a microphone. It's quite obstructive on a video podcast. I would not recommend it in that case, but for an audio podcast, you can go ahead and use that. Definitely, you're going to improve the quality of your recordings a lot. One mistake I've seen on and on, and I can hear it in every single podcast, and it sounds really annoying, is when people don't understand gain staging. So gain staging in audio, it's basically all about how loud do we record. Do we record very loud and then turn the volume down? The answer to that is always no. You don't want to record at a high level. You want to make sure that the gain on your microphone is somewhere in the range where it goes to green. It's green and occasionally hitting yellow. You might see that in the software you're using. We're going to touch on Audacity specifically in a second. But you want to make sure that it touches the yellow occasionally, but never the red signal, because that's when you know you distorted the signal, and that's called clipping in audio. So you don't want to make that mistake. And on audio interfaces, you have this knob in here that you can control the gain with, and depending on the audio interface, you may have two microphones in here. You've got input 1, input 2, and then you can set the gain at the right level. You can test it out, and then you can just leave it there. With USB microphones, it's a little bit different. Some USB mics have a knob on them it's labeled gain or input level. And some they don't have any of that, unfortunately. So what you need to do in that case, you will need to adjust the input level in the software in Audacity. I'm going to show you how you can do that today. Now, do you need to use headphones when recording a podcast? Look, I don't use headphones today. I'm not recording a podcast specifically, it's a YouTube video, but headphones are useful when you want to isolate certain signals from your microphone. So for example, if I record a podcast by myself and I don't care about monitoring myself and hearing myself in the headphones because I'm confident that the equipment was set correctly, I don't need to listen to it necessarily, you don't need headphones. If you want to monitor yourself and you want to hear how far away you talk and all that stuff, definitely use headphones. Another case for headphone use would be when you record a remote interview using Riverside, for example, and you hear the guest through the speakers. It could be from the laptop speakers or from your desktop speakers. You will hear the guest through those speakers, and those speakers will be captured by your microphone, and that will create an echo-like sound, and you don't want that to happen. And Riverside came up with a clever solution called echo cancellation. However, this solution is more like a fix to a problem that you've created because you haven't recorded your podcast correctly, and there's some side effects to that. There's some artifacts, like it will sound muffled, the quality will suffer basically. And Zoom is using the same technology without us even like realizing that it's there. So on Zoom you will never have this issue, but if you record on Riverside, for example, you will have this issue for sure. So you want to make sure that you use headphones in that case, and you leave the echo cancellation out from your settings, so you make sure that you don't use that. Okay, now let's go into the software side. Let me show you how you can use Audacity to record your podcast. So to download Audacity, it's quite easy. All you need to do is go to download Audacity, go to their official website, and then you can choose the version you want it for. It could be Windows, Mac OS, Linux even. I'm on a Windows machine, so I would choose this option. And then you go with the installation wizard. It's quite simple to install. Once you fire up the software, go to Audio Setup, Recording Device, and here you're gonna find the device that you connected to your laptop. So for example, if you've got a USB mic, you will see your USB mic as an option there. If you got an audio interface, that's what you're going to see as an option there. So make sure that you choose the right device to record your podcast with, because if you don't choose the right device, you may end up in a situation, and I've seen that many times happening, where people would have the microphone in front of them, but they would record with a built-in microphone from their computer. So make sure that you don't do that mistake. So if you use a Blue Yeti, for example, choose the Blue Yeti as an option. If you use a Focusrite audio interface, choose the Focusrite audio interface as an option. In my case, I've got a Discrete 8 audio interface, and I'm gonna choose that. I click on that, and then what I can do, I can just press record, and you're gonna see that the audio gets recorded. Now, you're also gonna see that the audio level is quite healthy, so it's not very quiet, but also is not very loud where it actually goes into red. So if it is loud, if it's too loud, just make sure that you lower down the gain. You can also control the input level from this slider as well. So if you have a USB microphone that doesn't have a gain knob at the back, this is what I'm going to suggest you use to control the audio signal with. And that's going to lower it down if it's too loud. And pretty much that's it. When it comes to recording a podcast using Audacity, you can stop recording and then you can put the cursor wherever you want to start recording again from. So let's say you want to pick up from where you left. You can start recording from there, and then you can stop, and then you can move tracks around. You can do all sorts of things. If you want to learn how to edit a podcast using Audacity, I have another video related to that. Check that out. It's quite simple. And one more thing that you might be wondering is how you record multiple people with Audacity. So if you have a case where you have an audio interface and you've got two microphones connected to that audio interface, how can you do that on Audacity? Now, Audacity is a little bit clunky on that, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So let's delete this track. You will create two tracks, and I would advise you create two stereo tracks like that. There you go. And you want to make sure that the recording device is selected to your input 1 and 2, for example. Let's say you want to record two people. And what you need to do is ensure that the panning is changed to left on one track and on right on the other track. And this way you will record two different inputs instead of the same input on both tracks. So make sure you do that. And that's how I will record two different inputs into one audio interface. After you finish your recording, just go to Files and then Save Project, and make sure you save your project, or you can save project as well. And then you can come back, re-edit your podcast, or send it to a podcast production company that will edit the podcast for you. So speaking about that, if you want a podcast production company to deal with the post-production process, even helping you out with recording and everything else, reach out to Saspod. I'm gonna make sure that you get the best podcast possible, and not just the best podcast possible, a podcast that will grow your authority and visibility online. Thank you so much, and I hope you found this tutorial useful. And if you have any questions, please don't forget to leave them down in the comments. I'm going to answer each and one of them. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, like this video, share it with the world, and let's make podcasting a better experience for everyone, because I've seen loads of people making mistakes. I want to make sure you're not that guy and you actually make a podcast that sounds incredible. See you later. Bye.